have made their pace lap. They'll be pulling to the grid, and you can imagine that the most exciting moment in motorsports, a Formula One standing start, is made absolutely treacherous when you are going uphill on a wet racetrack into a driving rain, and that's what we're about to see. 24 years ago today, Jimmy Clark set Formula One history when he won his 4th successive Belgian Grand Prix. That remains a record for consecutive victories in a single race. The late Jim Clark, one of the finest Formula One drivers of all time.
And he never liked it here either, and he particularly did not like it here in the rain.
It was enormously quick, enormously dangerous, made even more so by the rain. You see the cars pulling up. When all the cars are stationary on the grid, they'll be placed under starters' orders. Notice it is downhill and around the turn, and those cars at the back will be going much faster than the cars at the front when they reach La Source, where they will slow. The green light is on. Alain Prost gets a good start. The field appears to be away cleanly. Senna moves over to the outside line. They'll run 250 meters, and one of the Ferraris is off. That's Nigel Mansell.
Going round, but he got round both Renaults. There he goes wide. There he goes wide at La Source, but he still stays in front of the 2 Renault engine cars, the Boots and the Fraser.
Now downhill, 160 miles an hour as they head for Le Rouge. There, from the pit lane, Stefano Modena, whose car broke down on the warm-up laps before they gridded for the first time, and he is starting in Martin Brundle's car that has been renumbered for him. Look at the fog as these cars travel through Kimmel.
And up the straight here, they're getting about 185, 190 miles an hour. Well, 195 in the dry and about 190 in the wet as Senna extends his lead. He is the only guy here, of course, who's got a completely clear track. And I'm estimating that by the time they end the first lap, he's going to have about a 10 or 12 second lead over the rest of the field. And boy, oh boy, rather them than me today.
In 1985, this race was run around.
This is up at the Les Combes.
Les Combes, a triple series of turns at the end of a very fast straightaway. Looks like one of the Lolas and a couple of the Ligiers. Arnoux in the white helmet.
René Arnoux ran very well here on Friday in qualifying in the rain, and he went well this morning in the warm-up, but not going so well this afternoon. Down to Pujas. Ayrton Senna comes into view there. A tricky downhill corner made even more tricky today as the water runs down and across. As you can see, it gathers there on the empty to this La Fagne. Difficult there because they're going very fast and just beginning their braking sequence for this S.
It'll be interesting to see Ayrton Senna's first lap time. We anticipate it'll be something in the area of 2 minutes and 15 seconds roughly. They lose about 25 seconds off their dry weather lap times in the rain, and it could not be raining any harder than it has here at Spa.
Well, Nigel Mansell took a very calculated risk at the beginning of the race, took to the grass, which of course is incredibly slippery being as wet as it is, but it got him around those 2 Renaults, which could have been an awful chore in this rain this afternoon.
There is Senna on a regular workaday road here that runs from the village of Savalot to the village of Francorchamps here in the Ardennes Forest. Now up to the bus stop chicane, which is exactly that. It's a turnoff for commercial buses here in the Spa area where they pick up their passengers. It's used now, of course, to slow the Formula One cars.
Gerhard Berger getting closer to Alain Prost. Alain Prost, not a devout rain lover. He retired from last year's British Grand Prix where it was similar to this, though not quite as wet as this. But Gerhard Berger went, of course, was on the pole on Friday afternoon in the wet.
It deserves mention that all of the paving over on the right there was added this year. Some $4 million worth of improvements were made here at Spa in order to make it a little bit safer. And one of the things they did was give the cars more runoff there at La Source, and Nigel Mansell used it to his advantage. Now once more up the sheer face of Eau Rouge and Radillon, the left-hand sweeper at the top.
And of course, as you can see, you get some idea just how difficult it is for the following drivers. You can see that enormous cloud of spray and haze following Ayrton Senna up the hill, and it just gives you an idea of what terrible, terrible visibility you get from one of these open-wheel cars in one of these wet races.
Ayrton Senna is the leader, and that is he as he comes downhill. And once again, television does not do real justice to the actual incline here. This is a steep downhill drop, and it has to be absolutely running with water.
Very slippery, that corner. Anyway, that left-hander at the best of times is slippery. And now, of course, he picks up some serious speed on this downhill bit here. They're in 6th gear. And normally he'd be doing 185 odd into this corner. Sneaks it down to 5th. He may even be taking 4th this afternoon while it's this way.
I began to make the point earlier before the guffaw up there in Les Combes. Ayrton Senna Senna won this race back in 1985, the last time it was run in the rain. It was actually supposed to be run during the summertime, but the course had been repaved, and it came up during one of the support races for the Formula One event. So Formula One officials decided not to run the race that day. They postponed it to the fall when it rained, and Ayrton Senna won one of his 2 victories here in the Belgian GP at Spa.
Senna, of course, has set himself somewhat of a reputation as an absolutely awesome wet weather driver. His very first win, of course, coming in Portugal in a Lotus in conditions very, very similar to this.
Got a look there quickly at Terry Boutsen, the local favorite, who began his Formula One career here and is running his 100th Grand Prix race today. Of course, he has 1 victory, and you saw it here earlier this year in Canada here on ESPN. There is your leader, Ayrton Senna of Brazil. Alain Prost runs second. Gerhard Berger is third for Ferrari. Down the front straightaway, or I should say up the front straightaway goes Mr. Senna, because it is an uphill climb here. Still on public roads, about to make the tight turn at La Source, more than 270 degrees. There is Gerhard Berger, just turned 30 years of age in the Ferrari, which has not finished in his last 10 races, and that goes back to the Australian event that wound up last year. Of course, he did not run at Monaco this year after his enormous crash and fire at Imola in Italy in the San Marino Grand Prix.
And of course, this race is going to be a bit like the Montreal race you saw earlier on ESPN, which was also very, very wet, and everybody's going to be desperate to get to the finish. One of them, most desperate of all, of course, will be Gerhard Berger, who, as you just said, has yet to finish the race this year. And although he caught up with Alain Prost, he is maintaining a fairly respectful distance. Obviously, what are you going to do? You can't get right behind the guy because you can't see anything. On the other hand, if you want to try and get by somebody, you have to be very close. And it's just one of those things where he's obviously going to be prepared to bide his time.
Well, the weather is playing havoc not only with our cameras, but also our other technical procedures. We apologize for any video difficulties along the line. We'll be back to Belgium. Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost lead the Belgian Grand Prix. The rain continues to fall here at the Belgian Grand Prix as Ayrton Senna, Alain Prost, Gerhard Berger, Nigel Mansell, and Terry Boutsen form the top 5 in the early laps of the Formula One Grand Prix of Belgium. Coming up Sunday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific, NFL football live here on ESPN from Soldier Field in Chicago, Illinois. It'll be the Chicago Bears against the Kansas City Pacific Time here on ESPN. NFL football is back. Bob Barcia, David Hobbs are with you, and there is Ayrton Senna, the defending world champion from Brazil, who has led this rainy Belgian Grand Prix from the start. Now, one of the Lolas, that's Philippe Alliot and René Arnoux to the left in the blue Ligier, have gotten together.
The same 2 that already crashed at Lacombe.
At Lacombe, on lap 2, they came together in a crowd of cars that spun off in that triple series. Now, here at the very dangerous La Source, they have really done some damage to Alliot's Lola.
Alliot needs a bit of help there. No, don't push him that way. Pull it.
Now they've got to pull him uphill, and debris has been left all over the racetrack. Alliot had such a great qualifying effort. Remember, this guy's job was on the line earlier this year. His teammate Yannick Dalma was actually fired from the Lola team, picked up with AGS, and did not qualify for this race. Alliot qualified 11th in the Lola. There's your leader, Ayrton Senna, and you can see by the rooster tail just how much water is all over this 4-mile racetrack. Now that
looks like Arnoux.
That's an Onyx. Stefan Johansson, I believe. And he has skidded straight off. I was about to say the early laps of this race have been remarkably incident-free considering, but the drivers have made a liar out of me. That is Bertrand Gachot. That is number 37 car, and he is in deep trouble there in the deep gravel.
But he reversed so well, and now the thing's got stuck. He got it away from the fence, but backed himself into the gravel. And now, of course, he's lifted the car up on the belly pan and can't. Okay, the guy's going to give him a bit of help.
Difficult to tell these 2 drivers apart. Gachot has that black patch. Actually, it's a blue flag carrying the stars of the European Common Market, while Johansson has the 3 leaves that are symbolic of his nickname, Little Leaf, when he was a youngster in Sweden. Tough to tell the story.
The thing you can see on the track there is that you can see no wheel marks at all. Normally when it rains, and as these guys pump off the water with those rain tires, they pump a tremendous amount of water. The track always just dries out a little bit, but it's raining so hard today that they just can't keep up with it at all. Now, Berger. No, sorry, that's Senna. I was thinking Berger was right behind me, but the spots on the lens are getting me a bit confused. Senna's starting to really pull away again. Still the only guy here with a decent clear track.
There
everybody else's vision is obscured.
There is Gerhard Berger, who has been having surprising handling troubles. He has been all over the racetrack thus far, and yet he is closing in on Alain Prost in second position.
But obviously, I feel sure if he could get around Alain Prost, he would be able to pull away from him, but he just can't get himself in a position to have a passing attempt.
By consensus, the Ferrari is a better handling car than the McLarens, who, as David mentioned, the show. There is Eddie Cheever, who had come so far so quickly. He started 24th. He is now in 16th position, but he's going to lose that now as he pits. Let's go down to John Bizignano.
Eddie Cheever is trying to motion to his team exactly what's wrong. They are changing all tires all the way around, but he certainly had to have another problem besides that. I'm sorry, we have a correction. It looks like one tire had gone down. I believe it's the left rear had gone down on Eddie Cheever's car. What a great drive he had, as you said, Bob, way back all the way up to 16th place. Let's see what he can do now.
Eddie Cheever, one of the better rain drivers. The Arrows cars have been struggling a bit. You may remember that Derek Warwick, as we look at the J pit, they've got a car in.
Arnoux, that is, just walking around there.
Yep, René Arnoux,
out of the race,
pulling off the Balaclava. At 41 years of age, the oldest man in the game.
Boy, just look, now that gives you an idea there, a perfect idea of just what these guys can see. Nothing.
I was going to say Derek Warwick led briefly in the rain in Canada, and now Eddie Cheever running well. In fact, his teammate Warwick is up in 8th position right now, so it looks like USF and Arrows cars could be in for a good day if they can stay on this treacherous racetrack.
There again, starting on the run down here past the old pit. Alain Prost, not too far behind. Like I said earlier, Alain Prost, not a devout lover of racing in the rain, but he's probably one of the few people out here that's really love, or least love, to make a mistake in the rain. Extremely competent and skillful driver.
Fast lap in the race thus far, set by your leader, Ayrton Senna, at 2 minutes 19.185 seconds. Compare that, if you will, to his fast qualifying time at 150.867, just over 140 miles an hour for the average, the fastest lap ever turned on this new Spa circuit. It used to be a great deal longer, more than 8 miles in length, and I know you remember that track, David.
Yep, I raced there in the 1,000 kilometers in 1968 in one of the Gulf Ford GT40s, and it was just like this for about 6.5 hours, and that was no fun. And Jochen Neerpach, who's the current leader of the Mercedes racing team, demolished the bus stop right in front of me because the roads were a lot narrower than this. Here's Thierry Boutsen, local favorite, coming down the hill to Rivage. This is a slippery corner, this one, I can tell you from personal experience. Very, very slippery.
Boutsen presently shown 5th position on the racetrack behind Senna, Prost, Berger, and Mansell. Behind Boutsen, the next 5, Ricardo Patrese and the other Williams, Sandro Nannini in the Benetton, Derek Warwick in the Arrows, Maurizio Gugelmin of Brazil in the March, and 10th, Alex Caffey. The next 10, Emmanuel Pirot, Stefan Johansson, Andrea De Cesaris, Pierluigi Martini, Ivan Capelli, Martin Brundle, Olivier Griard, Eddie Cheever, Michele Alboreto, and Dr. Jonathan Palmer.
Well, Thierry Boutsen will be glad to be leading his teammate, Patrese, who we just saw coming into the picture there, because this year, Thierry was definitely taken on as the #1 driver of the duo, but has consistently been beaten by his teammate, Patrese, who tends to out-qualify more times than not, and I'm sure in front of the home crowd, Thierry at the moment is very glad to be leading Patrese, but not by much, about 1.6 seconds, so not a lot in it. Up to Blanchimont. This is the normal everyday road, as you've already said. This is the main road from Stavelot to La Source, or to Francorchamps. And those two corners there, a couple of left-hand sweeps, really go through 90 degrees, and on a dry day, they're doing close to 200 miles an hour at that point. Certainly not doing 200 miles an hour through here. The bus stop down to 3rd, probably into 2nd this afternoon, and only probably getting up to 4th gear past the pits here, maybe 5th, instead of just snatching 6th. Patrese making ground on his teammate as he turns into La Source. You can see that Formula 1 car, even in this slippery, wet conditions, absolutely snap in when he turns the wheel. Just shows how much grip, even in conditions like this, these Formula 1 cars generate.
And you need all of it to get nearly 700 horsepower down on a very slick racetrack. John Bizignano has an update on Eddie Cheever's situation.
Actually, it's the left rear wheel nut that was the problem with that pit stop. Eddie Cheever, they were banging on the left rear tire, therefore I thought they were changing that one, and maybe it's gone flat, but it's the wheel nut that came loose. Now, there can be nothing more bothersome to a driver than to feel the wheel coming loose when he's doing 175 miles an hour. This was the same problem that Derek Warwick had in Hungary just 2 weeks ago. I wonder what Derek's thinking right now about his left rear wheel nut.
Not a place.
I also wonder what the engineers are thinking. They've obviously got a small problem there with the wheel nut, which is not an unusual thing, but of course it's also a very hard thing to pick up in the rain because the car's so twitchy anyway. It takes you some time to realize it's not as it just as twitchy, it's the fact the wheel's coming off.
I believe that's veteran Gacho in the Onyx being lapped by Alain Prost. Gerhard Berger coming up to get him. On a day to recall rainy races, remember 1976 when Niki Lauda pulled out of the Japanese GP and lost the championship to James Hunt? Mario Andretti won that race.
No, I haven't. Sorry. I admire a lot of sportsmen in any discipline. There's people like Gilles Villeneuve, and I think probably now Ayrton Senna, but they're not actual heroes. They're just someone I look up to. No, I never had. When I started racing go-karts, there was a racing driver called Ronnie Peterson. Not really.
And you can ask a Formula One driver any question you'd like. To send the question to Ask the Driver, P.O. Box 309, Crestwood, Kentucky, 40014. And the last man to answer our question, Nigel Mansell, has just reset fast lap at 2 minutes, 18.228 seconds. Bonner goes out of your picture. Alain Prost goes out of your picture. There is Gerhard Berger in his Ferrari. There is Nigel Mansell, who has just set fast lap in the number 27 car.
Everybody fairly close together in that front back, and of course 2 minutes 18, although it's the fastest lap today, it's by far the slowest kind of laps that we've been seeing all weekend, including the wet qualifying on Friday, where they were around about the 2:11 mark. So as you can see, it is incredibly wet. There's Derek Warwick and the USF&G Arrows. They're all pretty close together in that front group. Just the odd second here, then everywhere. Of course, it adds up. Nobody wants to get much closer. That car looks awfully stiff to me for a damp setup, or wet setup as Gugelmin turns in. Front washes away from him. Gets on the power down the hill.
Gugelmin running ninth on the racetrack right now. There was talk that his teammate Ivan Capelli wanted to leave the March team based on their lack of success with their new 89 car, but both Gugelmin and Capelli have re-signed with the March team for next year. And that led to one of the most boring press releases in a business where press releases are usually pretty boring, and the drivers say, I have my best chance of victory and getting to the top of my sport with this team, blah, 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 blah. Ayrton Senna remains your leader, and there you see him. The rain has not abated, and the rooster tails still make this look more like a hydroplane race than a Formula One auto battle.
And that is that Gugelmin? No, it's the Philippe Alliot.
That's Alliot, who hit René Arnoux earlier. Arnoux is now out of the race, and Alliot making his way around despite losing some pieces off that car.
The fact that you're not getting replays of these accidents, don't blame us, don't write to ESPN. It's not our fault that we're not getting a replay, but we normally would have expected to have a replay of the accident at Lake Combe earlier on, and of course the other one at La Source. But here's Philippe Alliot still struggling on in the Lola. Went very well in qualifying, both wet and dry, but of course I guess that's what happens when you've got your job hanging on the line. It's a very, very great source of inspiration and concentration of the mind. Today is a definite mind concentrator, I can tell you that. Senna swings into the bus stop, followed by Alliot, Prost and Berger, all in very close company, and just behind them is Nigel Mansell, winner at Hungary, who came up from 12th on the grid to take victory there in one of the most stirring pieces of overtaking we've ever seen when he passed Ayrton Senna on that incredible overtaking piece.
Alliot swings wide, knowing he doesn't have the machine right now to challenge Alain Prost. Prost moves by and heads downhill, and I mean down, to one of the lowest points on the course at the bottom of Eau Rouge.
Eau Rouge, of course, meaning red water. There is a stream that runs under there. There's also a very nice restaurant there. And it used to be an old customs post. Yellow flagged out, somebody spun off at a very, very fast point of the track. It must be Alliot or Berger. So Alliot, because there's Alliot.
That is a shot from a helicopter overhead, and in the dry weather, this shot was really spectacular. The cameraman able to get right down in the cars. The weather today is so miserable that the helicopters who are hovering over this race to supply both this picture and our in-car cameras have to be very, very careful. There is Johnny Herbert limping back to the pits. His Tyrrell has obviously spent the day.
Herbert also had done extremely well. He had moved up from a fairly lowly grid position. Well, he was 16th on the grid, and he had moved up to about 12th. But I don't know what's happened to him. Obviously, he's out of the race.
That looks like Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari.
I think Berger's gone off at Radillon. We saw those yellow flags come out, and he was trying to lap Philippe Alliot, who had just been passed by Alain Prost. But unfortunately, we did not see what happened there.
That That is definitely Nigel Mansell heading down into Lecombe, a combination of turns before reaching the Saveloy Road.
And here he's coming up on Philippe Alliot. We don't see further.
We may not be able to bring you in-car cameras today because of the helicopter shot I mentioned. There is the Ferrari of Gerhard Berger, the distinctive wide-bodied shape of the '89 Ferraris designed by John Barnard, himself a very controversial figure in this game. And there is Gerhard Berger to the left in red, gesturing to the courts marshals.
So that's 11 races in a row that Gerhard Berger has failed to finish. He must be wondering when his bad luck is going to run out.
Perhaps when he moves to McLaren next year. He has signed a contract to join Ayrton Senna on the McLaren team next year.
And he replaces his hat. Anyway,
let's go down to John Visignano.
Who says Formula One is insensitive sport? Here in the Ferrari garage, they have put streamers all over Gerhard Berger's side of the garage. Today is his birthday. Unfortunately, now out of the Belgian Grand Prix. He's not having the best birthday of his life. He's 30 years old today. Also, Derek Warwick, who is running in the top 8 at the moment, maybe he's a little happier on his birthday. Number 35. We promised we wouldn't tell anyone how old he is, but it is number 35. So happy birthday to Derek Warwick of England and Gerhard Berger of Austria. We'll be right back after this.
Our next stop on ESPN's Formula One World Tour will be the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, Sunday, September 10th, 8:20 a.m. Eastern Time, 5:20 Pacific here on ESPN. Recall that race a year ago when McLaren was leading 1-2. Both cars dropped out, and Ferrari finished first and second shortly after Enzo Ferrari's death. The schedule for the rest of our Formula One season will see us in Portugal on the 24th of September. The 1st of October will be in Spain. Japan comes up the 22nd of October, and we'll finish out the Formula One year in Australia on the 5th of November. And we hope you'll be with us for each stop along the way. Now, moments ago, Emmanuel Pirot in the Benetton had a bit of a problem out there at Saveloy. He spun through the gravel, parallel parked it neatly against the white tire wall, and then did this little maneuver, kind of outflanked the gravel pits on his way back to the racetrack, and he ended it with a definite flourish.
Certainly did a lot of very good thinking there, as we see Eddie Cheever coming up to try and get around Michele Alboreto, who's not having a very happy day, and Alan Prost has been following Cheever for some laps, and look what that's done to Nigel Mansell, put him right on the tail of Alan Prost. But of course, one of the troubles with this rain, although it levels everybody off, it makes overtaking so difficult that everybody hangs back at least a second or a second and a half in time. So they've got some idea of where the heck they're going on this high-speed track.
There's one of the Delaras parked out on the backside of the track. Can't get a good look at the number. The driver obviously already gone. Either Alex Caffey or Andrea de Cesaris is now out of the Belgian Grand Prix. And as you may note, the rain continues to absolutely pour down here in Belgium. It is affecting the quality of our pictures, and we apologize for that. Belgian television is definitely having their hands full bringing you this race. Alex Caffey, we are now told, has abandoned his ship out there on the racetrack. There goes Nigel Mansell.
And remember just how well Alex Caffey went just 2 weeks ago in Hungary, and it just shows what a fine line it is on all these technical things, and obviously the tyres are part of that, and the Pirelli tyres in Hungary went very well, and Caffey was right there in the thick of things for the whole race. Hasn't been doing well at all this weekend, and is already out.
Winds of change blow quickly in Formula One. Recall the last time Nelson Piquet failed to make a race was back in 1982. He came back and won the next race for Brabham.
Nigel now definitely thinking about overtaking Alain Prost, and of course they're all being held up here by Michele Alboreto, and it's just not that easy.
It's Alboreto, Cheever, Alain Prost, and Nigel Mansell in the red Ferrari. Senna leads, Prost is second, Mansell third.
I was going to say, Prost and Mansell, of course, about to put these other two drivers a lap down. Cheever, I know, would be right in the thick of things himself if he hadn't had to have that stop for a loose wheel nut. Very irritating. That's going to be by the end of the day for him. Up through Constantine, these two extremely fast left-hand sweep. Total blindness for the trailing cars. Can't see a thing.
What kind of courage does it take to drive into a blinding mist at over 100 miles an hour? Through the bus stop chicane, where the buses do stop to pick up local citizens here in the Spa-Francorchamps area. And uphill, braking hard, does Michele Alboreto. There is Eddie Cheever in the arrows, and he is passed to the left side by Alain Prost.
Let him through. He stayed out wide, waved him through, and but he may not even know that Nigel Mansell's quite that close behind him as well.
You can't see forward, you can't see to the rear either, and that can be a problem when you're overtaking someone else. Up through Eau Rouge they go once again to the left-hander at Radillon.
Now this is Prost's chance. He will now be thinking that if I could just get around Michele Alboreto here, I'll have both Alboreto and Cheever between me and Mansell, and maybe I can make a bit of a break while he's being held up. But of course that really depends on a bit of cooperation from Michele in below.
Good look from our rain cam overhead at the triple series of turns called Le Combe or Malmedy, which used to form this corner of the racetrack. That village a considerable distance away. The racetrack was shortened, and in the minds of the purists, it is still Malmedy. Into the downhill right-hander at Rivage. Let's go down to John Visignano in the pits.
Bob, we had a report from Gerhard Berger that the reason he went off the track was because of aquaplaning. He went through a stream of water on the track and lost all control. What happens? These are the very deep grooved rain tires. This is a Goodyear rear tire, and as you can see, even though the grooves are very deep and they are engineered to release and spray the water and dispel the water in every way possible, if a car at high speed goes through a deep puddle or a stream crossing the track, even this type of grooving will not always save contact with the road. All the drivers out there are actually just fearing the moment when they turn that front wheel and see absolutely nothing happen as far as contact with the road, putting on the brakes and watching them all lock up. You can literally ride on top of the road. Goodyear and Pirelli are trying to do the best they can, but these conditions might be winning with some of the teams at the moment.
Now you saw that tire that John had with him, and of course it's the Goodyear wet weather gator back, and of course you see a very similar tread pattern on their street tires these days, and that is a real racing development that has found its way onto your street tire.
As we continue to watch Nigel Mansell in third place, the Pirelli tire company was actually hand grooving tires for this racetrack. Their wet tires were not working, and Martini took a set to fastest in the warm-up this morning. Track Facts are brought to you by USF&G Asset Management, a network to better manage money, people, property, and equipment.
With the elimination of turbos, all teams were forced to develop new chassis. The latest design trends heavily emphasized aerodynamics. Because of this, cockpit sizes were squeezed to a minimum, and so were the drivers. It got so tight for the drivers, a new safety rule was initiated. All cockpits must be large enough for their occupants to exit in a minimum of 5 seconds.
Now, in the manufacturing of team cars, they're built virtually identical, and therefore the driver's size becomes very important to this equation. Now, Bob Varsha is just about the same size as Arrow's driver Eddie Cheever, and I'm very close to the size of Eddie's teammate, Derek Warwick. We have found a way to illustrate how critical driver size is when it comes to trying to comply to the 5-second FIA rule. Good luck, Bobby.
You got it, John.
With both of us in the cars, we will now try and beat the clock.
Bob, time's up, Bobby. No, sorry, Bob.
Just give me a minute.
I'm afraid your F1 career is over.
No,
but I am very much available, actually.
I promise I can do that. Just give me a minute.
I think it was dinner last night.
Oh.
Right, here, I'll help you out.
Hell, we can do it together.
That is no joke, folks. I was sitting in Eddie Cheever's car, and I could not get my knees out from behind the dashboard. The cards are incredibly tight.
Well, of course, Eddie himself couldn't, and his car has already been stretched. His car, in fact, is stretched over that of Derek Warwick's and lost him about 7 liters of fuel in the back, or the fuel tank that's right behind the driver, but he had to have a bit of extra length so that he could get in and out of that car.
That's right. They pushed the seat back, and they chopped down his steering wheel to the bare minimum. Whoa, you saw Alain Prost getting real twitchy there. The rain continues to pour here at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium.
Alain Prost, of course, has got the ideal situation there. He got around Alboreto and Cheever, and of course left poor old Nigel Mansell stuck in the cold there for a bit, which has given him a bit of a chance, and he's pulled out about a 5-second lead on Nigel Mansell, who was right behind him. So a very, very ideal set of circumstances, and I think that Alan Prost was really pressing his little old accelerator there to try and maintain that gap, or try and improve it as much as he could while he had a bit of a break going for him. But I believe that Mansell has now got around the other two cars. There we see them going down to the Pujon from a very high shot. Gives you an idea of that long left-hander. Last time I drove here in '85 was with Jonathan Palmer, who's in this race. He and I were driving a Porsche, and he went off right there and hit that guardrail where those two guys are standing and broke his leg, and had a very severe accident in practice, so that was the end of our run. But a long, fast corner that. There we see Eddie Cheever, who now is running in 16th spot in spite of that stop, and in fact is still only 1 lap down, so he's actually not doing too badly. Boutsen and Patrese, close contact there. Boutsen still leads Patrese, and Boutsen's not very far behind Nigel now.
It has been a very long weekend for the Brabham team. John Bizignano has a comment.
Well, Bob, remember the Brabham team crashed both cars in the final warm-up. They tried to fix the crashed car of Brundle for Stefano Modena. He came into the pits, and he has not gone back out. He's out of the car. The car just wasn't right, and they were worried to let him still circulate around this very high-speed circuit. His teammate, Martin Brundle, they are down there bleeding the brakes of the whole thing. They've had to do this before. They are bleeding the front brakes. It's a very long process. He has been in for several laps, but they are planning to have him continue once they get the brake situation, the brake pedal hard again. Also, Johnny Herbert is out. Remember, this is his first race in several Grand Prix. He was in the Tyrrell car. He crashed, and he went by here limping very severely. I hope, for heaven's sakes, he did not re-injure that foot.
That foot, of course, is the one he broke severely in a big Formula 3000 crash last fall.
Well, we just saw a real bit of action at La Source there. Nigel Mansell had not got around Alboreto and Cheever. Cheever finally let him through, which means that the gap from Mansell to Prost has grown in 1 lap from 5 to 11 seconds, which is why we saw Alan Prost putting so much heart into those laps just a few minutes ago. There we see Cheever letting Boutsen through, and I'm assuming he'll let Patrese through if he knows he's there, but it's very hard for him to know who's right behind him in this weather. Yeah? Patrese's around now, but of course that blockage, Cheever and Alboreto had really bunched up Mansell, Boutsen and Patrese into one mad charging bunch there, and of course it's allowed Alan Prost to make yet more room on them, and of course our leader Ayrton Senna now holds a 14-second lead over his teammate Alan Prost.
Despite 186 Grands Prix worth of experience, Ricardo Patrese is not a real patient guy. Remember the battle he had with his own teammate in the rain in Canada, in Montreal earlier this year.
Not patient at all, and there's Derek Warwick has joined the fray now, also wanting to get around his teammate Eddie Cheever.
Running down the list for you, Ayrton Senna is your leader. Alain Prost runs second, Nigel Mansell third, Terry Boutsen fourth, Ricardo Patrese is fifth, followed by Sandro Nannini, Derek Warwick, Mauricio Gugelmin, Stefan Johansson, Andre De Cesaris, Emmanuel Pirro, Pierluigi Martini, and Ivan Capelli. Back in Belgium, where the rain continues to fall, 20 of the original 26 starters still remain in the Formula One Grand Prix of Belgium, and of those, 13 remain on the lead lap. Coming up later today here on ESPN Live, it will be the All-American Derby from Ruidoso Downs in Ruidoso, New Mexico. The world's fastest quarter horses gathering for a sub-22-second race worth $1 million. Remember, that's live here on ESPN today at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. Oh, and we've got a problem here. That's one of the Williamses way off the racetrack, and it looks like maybe the Benetton or the Lola has hit the tire barrier very hard. That is the Kelly Alboreto in the Lola Lamborghini.
And Ricardo Patrese. Patrese not having a good run the last 2 weeks. The car minus his wings, minus a couple of wheels. Michele Alboreto out of the race. Oh dear, there'll be some hard words spoken between those two drivers there. Alboreto had in fact been holding up a very long train of hard charging guys. Mansell, Boutsen, Patrese, Derek Warwick and Nannini were all in that group trying to get around Alboreto.
And remember, we said Patrese is not a patient man when it comes to passing. I'm not blaming Patrese because we haven't seen it.
Now somebody there is getting a black flag by the thing.
Ron Dennis over in the right in the red Marlboro uniform talking to track officials. Car number 10, if this is in fact a black flag, it would be for Eddie Cheever. I wonder if they're thinking that Eddie is blocking people. Looked like a flash of white, so it could be they're going to call Eddie Cheever into the pits. There he goes. He's got a long way to go to get to the pit entrance so that he can come in for the consultation. Back to Riccardo Patrese for one moment. He and Nigel Mansell, as you see Patrese there in the white uniform, Michele Alboreto in the green and yellow. Patrese has a string of 4 podium finishes in the top 3. He shared that streak with Nigel Mansell. Mansell going for his 5th today. Riccardo Patrese having a long day. There is Frank Williams in the cap with the Goodyear logo on it. Crippled in an automobile accident a couple of years ago. He is the inspiration for the Williams Grand Prix Engineering Formula One race team, and he is watching the same pictures you are. He knows that his man Patrese is now out.
Ayrton Senna about to put Ivan Capelli down a lap. Ivan Capelli at the moment running in 13th spot and the last person on the lead lap. And he is about to be relegated by a lap, which will put 12th spot as the last man on the lead lap.
It is Senna, Prost, Mansell, Boutsen, Patrese, Nannini. Excuse me, Patrese is now out. That moves Nannini up to 5th, followed by Derek Warwick, Mauricio Gugelmin, Stefan Johansson, Emmanuel Pirot, and Andrea De Cesaris and the Dallara filling out the top 10.
And right behind De Cesaris is Pierluigi Martini, who went so well this morning with those specially hand-grooved Pirellis, but they're not doing what they hoped they would do this afternoon. He's going well, but not quite well enough.
Let's get down to John for more on Eddie Cheever's situation.
Well, it was a tense minute down here when they were waving that flag, but if you saw the flag, it was half black and half white. Now, this is a caution flag shown to the driver, meaning that he is being observed, officially, they say, in the rule book, and that he should watch himself a little bit. Obviously, they thought Eddie was holding people up, but Eddie's been passing people right and left, but when the leaders came through, I think they wanted to have Eddie give him a little bit more room. The Arrows peoples are set up, but not for a stop under that situation. They're all ready to change tires. But right now, Eddie Cheever is being observed.
Well, we observed him, and he seemed to be going pretty well, and it took Alan Prost and Ayrton Senna just a long time to get around him, because he was turning in competitive lap times there. We see Capelli going down a lap to Ayrton Senna as they come up to Lake Combe at the top of the hill. Here comes Alan Prost. Alan Prost, of course, has pulled back. What was a 15-second deficit is down now to 12, whereas he, in turn, has increased his lead over Nigel Mansell to 18 seconds, and on the way has set a new fastest lap of the race at 2 minutes and 16. So he is really starting to get on with the program here in the rain, which he does not particularly like.
We apologize once again for the quality of our pictures today. It is absolutely pouring here in Belgium, a real deluge, and the Belgian television people really have their hands full providing us the quality of the pictures that we're getting, and we're grateful for that. There you saw the 2 Minardis joined at the hip. Every time I see these guys, Luis Perez Sala and Pierluigi Martini are running together, and right now they have the leader, Ayrton Senna, right there behind them.
But of course, one of them, Luis Perez Sala, is dead last, and Pierluigi Martini is running well.
I thought I noticed Senna crack his visor open there. It looked like he raised it for a second. He may be getting some fog on the inside.
Ooh, he could be.
And having your bare eyes exposed to these kinds of speeds and this kind of rain would be a little bit prickly, I would think.
Well, obviously you couldn't go for long like that, but sometimes if you just crack it a bit, it lets the mist out.
And you saw him got by one of the Minardis. Now he has only the second one in front of him as they make the high-speed run on one of the only level parts of this racetrack, headed for the bus stop chicane. There is Senna. Martini is directly in front of him in the yellow helmet. Treacherous conditions here in Belgium.
Now then, there's Sala waving him. I mean, Pierluigi Martini. Didn't he wave him through there?
I thought he might be, or he might be playing with his visor as well. Let's see if the Honda can take the Ford down the straight to Eau Rouge.
There we see Prost coming into the picture. Not so very far behind Ayrton Senna now. But of course, he also is going to get involved in this battle between Sala and Martini, even though, of course, Sala is a lap down on his own teammate and now 2 laps down on everybody else.
Speaking of Prost closing in on Senna, Nigel Mansell has now reset fast lap in the Ferrari at 2 minutes 15.427 seconds. And there is Bertrand Gachot with the Onyx into the tires.
For the second time, of course. Second time he's been off the road, first time actually into the tires. As you can see, his left front wheel very deranged. This is also down at Stavolo.
Straight off.
Which is where we saw Emmanuel Pirot do his oop. And detaches the left front wheel against the tyre barrier. But what a job those tyre barriers do.
Better than going into that unforgiving Armco or perhaps a concrete wall, which has also happened here at Spa. In fact, it claimed the life of sports car driver Stefan Belloff of Germany just a few years ago.
That certainly looks like Stavelo, which is, it must be getting pretty slippery down there. You can see right behind it the last corner of that Le Fagnes group.
And as the rain continues to fall, the rooster tails continue to rise, and visibility continues to deteriorate here in Belgium. John Bizignano has more.
You know, Bob, in Formula One on a rainy day like this, you tell people that drivers can't see anything, and people still think they can see something. Well, when you're behind a rooster tail like that at high speed, you virtually can't see anything except for the guiding light. There is a light on the back of everyone's car, every Formula One car, that has to be put on in the rain. It's called a rain light, and the drivers call it a guiding light. This is all they can see. Many times they follow the driver in front of them around corners, into braking situations, up hills, left and right bends, doing only one thing, following the light in front of them and listening for the tone of the engine, downshifting, upshifting, and then they follow the person in front of them. David Hobbs, have you ever followed the guiding light into the wrong situation?
I've never followed into the wrong situation, but I have followed a few guiding lights, and of course very often those guiding lights become non-guiding lights when they break. Nigel Mansell,
who has just reset fast lap 2:14.947, and so Nigel Mansell and Ferrari looking for their second straight victory as he overtakes Luis Perisala in the Minardi heading into La Source. Ayrton Senna is your leader. Alain Prost is second. Nigel Mansell closing in within 14 seconds of the leaders despite the conditions. An exciting conclusion to the Belgian Grand Prix awaits later today. Moments ago here in Belgium, Nigel Mansell tried to turn in at Lacombe, and look at what happened.
didn't answer to the helm, saw the break in the curb and decided to go for the low point rather than the high point, splashes through the water about a foot deep in the grass, bounces back onto the track, grabs the L wheel and the initiative and sets off, and probably lost virtually no time at all.
In fact, he has reset fast lap 2:14.833 for Nigel Mansell, who is slowly but inexorably closing in on Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost in first and second. There is Frank Williams conferring with his driver Riccardo Patrese, now out of the race. 17 of the original 26 starters remain. There is Terry Boutsen, the Belgian, and a Belgian has never won the Belgian Grand Prix. You know all eyes are on this man today.
Thierry Boutsen, of course, is the #1 driver in Belgium at the moment. Lived for a long time under the shadow of Jackie Hicks, who was his mentor to start with. Became a bit of a tormentor as time went on. There was a lot of jealousy between those two. Hicks is now out of the scene, and and Thierry Boutsen is the undisputed Belgian #1 racing driver, and of course would dearly love to win this race in front of a home crowd.
He presently runs in 4th position behind Mansell, about 12 seconds in arrears.
Gives you some idea of how fast Nigel's driving, because the last time we saw them, Boutsen was right behind him. Now, he may have been pushed back a bit by the fracas between Alboreto and Patrese. We don't know where Boutsen was when that happened. He must have been very close to it, and it could have affected him a little bit. We don't know.
Crashes have taken out at least 5 cars thus far that we know of. The remaining cars are Senna, Prost, Mansell, Boutsen, Nannini, Warwick, Gugelmin, Johansson, Pirot, De Cesaris, Martini, Capelli, Eddie Cheever, Olivier Briard, Jonathan Palmer, Philippe Alliot, and Luis Sala.
Luis Sala down a couple of laps. Cascio is out now, Patrese is out, Albreto's out. There we see, coming into Pouhon, Thierry Boutsen really getting on with the program around there.
Looks like he's overtaking Luis Sala, the only Spaniard in the race. Driving the Minardi, looks like he'll give way.
Letting him through. This was the corner that just last year we saw that unbelievable overtaking maneuver on the part of Patrese. We saw him late in the race. I can't even remember who he was overtaking, but I can remember Patrese making the most desperate move there and getting away with it, banging a few wheels en route. Thierry setting off in hot pursuit up towards Blanchimont, actually drying out just a little bit, as you can see there. You can see those wheel marks I was talking about earlier on. The road is gradually being pumped dry. All that spray is being dispersed when it gets up in the air and blown away. It's not raining anything like as heavily as it was, so the track is just marginally drying out, but it's still very slippery.
And we are barely halfway through this race, scheduled for 45 laps. We're about 26 laps in, and the weather is drying a little bit. It's not raining as hard. As David mentioned, the line appears to be drying, and that raises a whole new set of rules regarding these rain tires.
Well, of course, the speed will pick up. The road will dry even quicker. There we see Nannini getting around one of the Minardis there. Nannini, of course, just that close to Thierry Boutsen. You see disappearing at the top of the picture. And there's Eddie Cheever going around Sala now as well. Eddie Cheever running pretty well on the pace, but unfortunately a lap down after that early pit stop. Now, as the road dries out, what you're really going to say is that if it really starts to dry out, these tires will start to wear badly and quickly. And you'll see these guys hunting around for wet patches on the road to try and make sure their tires survive at the end of the race.
Across Kemmel and down to the triple turn known as Lecombe. These cars are hitting 175 miles an hour under these conditions on that straightaway, and that is truly outstanding. Nannini gets a little tail happy there. Looks like it's still raining pretty hard out on the far reaches of the course. This is as far away from our announced position near La Source.
Yellow flag waving there, I guess. That was what was in front of the camera.
Something in the grass.
Didn't see anything there, did you?
Nothing there.
But the yellow flag was definitely being waved in front of the camera.
And a waving flag is more important than a stationary one. But no apparent obstacles. He heads downhill to Pouhon. Really treacherous corner here.
This is where, of course, Nelson Piquet came unstuck yesterday afternoon and put him out of the race for the first time. A Lotus not in a race for 31 years.
Derek Warwick to the left of your picture, running in 6th position, so this could be a position battle within just a few yards. Derek Warwick hoping to take away 5th from Alessandro Nannini.
Alessandro Nannini, of course, driving the latest. Here we see our leader is coming up to lap, that looks like Pirro.
Prost going by, Pirro in the other Benetton.
In the other Benetton, right.
Keep in mind that Ayrton Senna has not lost a race in the rain since 1984 until this year at Montreal. With 2 laps to go, his car gave up on him, and so for the first time in 5 years in Montreal, Ayrton Senna lost a wet race. He is truly the rainmeister in Formula One right now.
Of course, that race in Monte Carlo a few years back when he came second to Alain Prost, he was about to take the lead when they red flagged the race because of the treacherous conditions. And of course, this was incredibly early in his Formula One career. He'd only done about 4 Formula One races, and there he was about to clean off Alain Prost some 5 years ago. A pretty staggering performance for what was then an extremely young and relatively inexperienced driver. That yellow flag again.
Waves once again as Ayrton Senna makes his way through. Keep in mind, Senna won his first GP in the rain in Portugal. He has always been unbelievably quick. In his post-pole interview, when he was brought in as the fastest man in the field to talk to the journalists, he said that he had hoped it would not rain, although many of his best results have come in rain races for safety reasons, as well as the fact that he thought his McLaren would not function as well as some of the other cars in the rain. He hoped that it would remain dry. Nevertheless, we have had a monsoon here in Belgium, and Ayrton Senna has led the race from the start. There is Thierry Boutsen heading into the downhill right-hander known as rivage or embankment. And when you get to the next camera position, you'll be able to see the tall embankment that borders the turn. Getting a little bit slippery there as well.
Not only did Ayrton Senna not want it to rain, apparently his Honda mechanics didn't want it to rain either, because they hung a ghost on a flagpole last night, which apparently is a Japanese tradition to scare away rain.
Well, we saw how well that works.
So much for that Japanese tradition.
Tell him to keep that one in the locker. I have no idea how much it has rained today here in Belgium, but it must be at least an inch. We had an absolute cloudburst just before the start of this race, and it led up long enough. There was serious talk about not starting this race, and we did not know how long we would be unable to bring it to you, but it did let up. We were able to get underway. As appalling as the conditions were at the start, the race remained trouble-free for at least 3 or 4 laps before we had our first incident of contact. We now have 7 cars, make that 8 cars on the lead lap, and 17 remain of the original 26. A quick look there at the contrails off the top wing of Thierry Boutsen's Williams with Renault V10 power. That, of course, created as the air crosses over the wing and is condensed in creating the downforce that holds these cars to the track. They'll create the little vortexes at the corners. There is Martini in the yellow helmet, followed by Capelli in the Miami blue March. And here comes the man of the hour, Terry Boutsen.
Martini and, of course, Capelli are battling for a spot. They're battling for 11th spot at the moment. Martini on the Pirelli tyres, Capelli on Goodyear. Capelli and Gugelmin have had a pretty miserable year so far, but Gugelmin is up to 7th. Only needs another place-up move by him or a retirement, and he'll be in the points, and he'll be a happy boy at that, because he had a third in Rio at the beginning of the year, a great third position in front of a home crowd, but since then, the Leighton House cars have just failed to come up with anything startling at all. There we see Thierry Boutsen about to put Capelli down, a lap as well. Capelli 1 lap down on the leader. There's Nannini in the new V8 engined Ford, V8 engined rather, Benetton car. Going extremely well. Very stubby looking car, that. Doesn't have a slightly odd looking shape, but obviously they've done a lot of wind tunnel work on this car, and it does seem to work very well.
I think of it as the car with broad shoulders. A hulking looking machine raises up behind the driver's head more than any other car in Formula One.
Perhaps it would have been fairer if you had done your exit test from this car then.
Let's not discuss my exit test. That is a road, a farm road between the villages of Hawkeye and Malmedy that I will remember for a long time, and so will the good people from Porsche, I'm afraid. Taking a look at the cars out of the race, René Arnoux in the Ligier, Johnny Herbert, his day is done in Tyrrell, Gerhard Berger for the 11th straight time in the Ferrari, Alex Caffey with the Dallara, Stefano Modena and Martin Brundle are both gone for Brabham. Michele Alboreto and Riccardo Patrese came together and are out, as is Bertrand Gachot, a native Belgian. We'll be back in a moment. Just cars and drivers. It is exotic locations, such as Belgium, bordered by France, West Germany, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. It's a nation about the size of Maryland, containing some 10 million people. Let's take a look beyond the gates. The Hotel Le Rouge, right here on the racetrack at Spa-Francorchamps, offers luxury accommodations for some $75 a night on the most exciting turn in racing. French fries are the most popular junk food in the sidewalk cafes of Francorchamps. And of course, ESPN Formula One viewers are familiar with the Laval store, which doubles as grocery, and the model shop that includes the most extensive collection of race cars in the world. Of course, in an area that calls itself Spa, you would expect to find plenty of mineral water. And in fact, Francorchamps and Spa both bottled their own. Here at the Pouhon Pierre-Legrand in Spa, right in the middle of town, you can go inside the building, pay 7 Belgian francs, and draw your own cup of the famous local brew. Some folks come to Spa to enjoy the mineral baths that ease the body, while others come for the oldest casino in Europe to empty their wallets. Either way, Belgium is a sun-drenched and unforgettable country most of the time. I should clarify that it is always unforgettable, but it is only occasionally sun-drenched, and it has not been that today. It is absolutely pouring here in Belgium, and it has been an exciting race thus far. There is Nigel Mansell hoping for his 2nd straight victory and his 5th straight podium finish as he works his way up the drivers' points table. Alain Prost leads with 56, 14 over defending world champion Ayrton Senna. Mansell in the solid 3rd place with 34 points over Riccardo Patrese, now out of this Belgian Grand Prix. He has 25 points. In 5th place, Terry Boutsen, who's very much still in this race, is 17 points, brings him 5th. McLaren running away with the Constructors' title, 98 points to 42 for Williams-Renault.
Well, Nigel Mansell, in the last few laps while we've been doing commercials and other things, has been driving an absolutely incredible race and has pulled up from about an 18-second deficit to a 6-second deficit on Alain Prost, and every lap sets a new fastest lap of the race. He's gone from 2:16 by chunks of about a second a time, and he's now down to 2:13.5 as fastest lap of the race. It is obviously drying out a bit, which is aiding and abetting him in that, but the others obviously cannot respond. He is now just 6 and a few seconds behind Alain Prost, who in turn is 10 seconds behind Ayrton Senna.
I'll remind you that he is my pick to win this race. He came from 12th place 2 weeks ago at a Hungarian Grand Prix circuit that is supposedly impervious to passing. He passed 11 cars, including Ayrton Senna, in a straight fight in the McLaren, and won.
Well, due to the late start of the race and other extenuating circumstances, pick 6 has been cancelled today.
Oh, come on. Just when I got a chance to catch up on you guys.
No, I think it's been cancelled because all my 6 have all crashed and all. Except this man here.
That's right. Ayrton Senna, whom John and David picked to win the race, continues to lead. doing well in the McLaren. His teammate next year will be Gerhard Berger. Whither goeth his present teammate, Alain Prost? No one talking. There was a rumor that Prost might join Mansell at Ferrari. Mansell says he knows no more about it, that one week it appears to be on, the next week it appears to be off. Prost, for his part, recently said he has not spoken to Ferrari at all, but aside from McLaren, whom he is leaving, Ferrari, Williams, and Benetton are the only other teams he would consider going to. And he says he will definitely be with one next year. The Williams team has said, our offer is on the table. We're just waiting to hear from him.
Well, there he is, about to come up and lap Stefan Johansson in the Moneytron Onyx car. And again, you can see that double element wing on that Marlboro McLaren. What an incredible compression it does on this very, very humid air, and turns the air into those contrails as it exits from the extreme corners under that slotted wing. Just the sort of effect you get on an aeroplane you see if you look out the window when you're coming into land in humid conditions.
Down the run to Pouhon. Johansson slips outside and allows his former teammate Alain Prost to make his, Ayrton Senna to make his way through.
Ayrton Senna, of course, in fact replaced Stefan Johansson at McLaren.
And left Lotus to do it. What must be going through his mind after winning the last race that Lotus has won in Formula One competition at over 400 starts for that team? He moves on to McLaren, being bumped out of Lotus, we might add, by his biggest rival in Formula One, his countryman Nelson Piquet. And now he finds himself with McLaren, where he has won the first of what will be, if you believe the folks who know, several world championships for Ayrton Senna.
And although he's trailing in this year's championship, if the race was to finish right now, he would gain on the leader, Alain Prost, and it would be Prost 62 points, Senna 51. But with all the wins that Senna's racking up, we'd have the same situation as last year. People would have to start dropping points, and I fear that even with all the wins, that would play into the hands of Ayrton Senna, and yet again he could end up as world champion. And what a dynamic duo it's going to be next year when Gerhard Berger joins him. But Berger's luck's going to need to make a bit of a change for him to be in a chance of winning any races. Just right now, he'd be glad to finish one.
4 victories for Ayrton Senna this year, 3 for his teammate Alain Prost.
There we saw the first sign of Ayrton Senna looking for water. As he came down the run to Eau Rouge, he took to the water on the far side of the track.
That means that the track is drying out, and he's concerned about his rain tires. They will not last long under dry conditions.
See, same thing going up the hill. Staying offline, back onto line to go through the corner, but as he gets on the straight bits, he runs offline to keep those tires cool.
Once again, remember Silverstone a year ago, where it stopped raining during the race, and Senna and Nigel Mansell behind him were all over the racetrack looking for water for those tires.
Well, these tires have a very deep tread, as you saw from John's little piece from the pits. It's a very deep tread, and of course it's basically a soft compound, the sort of compound that normally they'd use on a qualifying tire, and of course it just will not stand having too much heat put into it. And I'm sure he'll do the same thing here. He'll go over to the left hand side of the road as he runs down the hill. He'll swing back to take the corner on line, but of course after a while they have to be pretty careful there and even run offline through the corner.
There is Nigel Mansell in the Ferrari looking for water for his Goodyear Eagles. Plenty of racing still to come in the Belgian Grand Prix with a big crowd on hand. We'll be back in a moment. Yeah, there it is. The sun is about to come out here in Belgium, and that is bad news. With 11 laps remaining, 33 in the books, those rain tires are not going to continue to perform well, and we may have a very dramatic conclusion to this race. Coming up later today, championship tennis, your Hamlet Challenge Cup, the North Star Bank Hamlet Challenge. Andre Agassi, the defending champion, has already been ousted. The men's final, it will be live. Yvonne Lendl versus Michael Pernfors, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific, here on ESPN. On the racetrack, Ayrton Senna is the leader. There is Alain Prost running in second position, but behind him, the Ferrari of Nigel Mansell is closing in.
Now there's an interesting thing. Alain Prost running straight down the right-hand side of the road there, not bothering to pick up water, and nor was Nigel Mansell. And of course, if the sun does come out, as you say, it'll dry out much quicker. And with just a few laps to go, it does lead to a whole host of permutations that could happen. I mean, if you wear the tires out too much on the drying track, and then it rains at the end, you need new tires. And if you wear them right out, you've got to make a tire stop. All sorts of things can happen.
There is the gap from Alain Prost in second to Nigel Mansell in the red Ferrari in third. Quickly, let's get a comment from John Bisognano on the future of those rain tires.
Bob, first of all, I think the future is going to be cloudy. There was just a brief moment of sunshine down here, but the clouds are coming in very heavily again behind me. I can actually see rain coming down quite heavily at one of the far ends of the circuit. The rain tires, as David said, very soft compound. They cannot live on a dry track. The dry track overheats the tires and wears them down, especially on the sides. The left front here at this particular circuit would take one heck of a beating. The sun is making a liar out of me. It is coming through a hole right at the moment. My frost is coming out of my mouth. My lips are so cold I can't even talk. But the important thing, 9 laps to go. It won't be worth it to come in and get new rubber. They've got to stay out there if they want to maintain their positions.
Neither man can stop now. Alain Prost has just about a 1.5 seconds lead over Nigel Mansell, and he closed up very sharply at La Source.
But you can see there that it is still pretty wet in places. Nigel Mansell there using all of the road at Radillon, that very, very fast and frightening left-hander at the top of the hill. But he is making serious gains into Alain Prost's lead over him. Meanwhile, Ayrton Senna enjoys a 12-second lead over Prost. But this is the battle here. And who's going to make his tires last the best, I think, is going to win this race.
And you better know that Alain Prost knows that Nigel Mansell is behind him. Mansell absolutely flew past Prost in Hungary 2 weeks ago. And then a very daring pass took him past Prost's teammate Ayrton Senna. So Prost knows that right behind him, Nigel Mansell is not going to be saving the horses. You saw the pit board. When they complete this lap, there will be 8 to go here in the Formula One Grand Prix of Belgium.
Mansell going offline a bit there, but not much. Both of them running down that relatively dry line. With just 8 laps to go, they need to be careful. You can see the car of Prost there. Go, and Nigel having a tremendous moment there on the exit of that extremely fast corner. Part of that could be the slippery track. Part of it could be because these tires are giving up. They get very, very hot.
There is Nigel Mansell closing in once again. He will be able to close right up on Prost when they get to the bus stop chicane, and certainly at La Source.
Because one of the troubles is once these tires start to give up just a little bit, the car gets a bit out of shape, starts to get sideways, puts even more heat into the tires, and of course then they degenerate very, very quickly.
The two men who could be teammates next year, if you believe the rumors.
Dry, see, quite dry there as they come through Blanchimont, and putting a lot of heat into these tires because that's one of the fastest, hardest corners here at Spa.
The entire Ferrari team this week is mourning the loss of Aurelio Lampredi, who died a couple of weeks ago at the age of 71. The man the late Enzo Ferrari once said was the most prolific engine designer Ferrari ever had. In fact, he designed that first Ferrari V12 that beat the Alphas back in the early 1950s. Aurelio Lampredi is dead, but his legacy remains in the V12. And Nigel Mansell way off onto that new paving we mentioned. Without that new paving, Nigel is now sitting in a $100 box seat here at the Belgian Grand Prix.
Nigel really, really trying hard now. You can see those sparks coming off the under tray of this car, even though it's lost most of its fuel load. Coming up to lap somebody in a very critical position here as they go up the hill towards Les Combes.
And you saw the fist in the air from a big crowd here, despite tickets that run to $135 for a grandstand seat. Cost you $50 just to come in and stand around. Traffic between. But out of the way again. Looks like one of the Tyrrells moved out of the way.
Jonathan Palmer, because we know that Herbert's out.
That's
Jonathan
right.
Palmer doing a good job with his mirrors there. First of all allowed Prost through and then allowed Mansell through right in the middle of the corner.
That was Palmer in 16th position right now. He now goes 3 laps down. And they're getting closer and closer. Let's take another look at what happened to Nigel Mansell quickly just a moment ago.
I think we better be quick because here we see him coming into La Source. Just behind, as you can see, starts to go wide here, jumps up over the curb, out onto all that new paving, probably not lifting one little bit. He scoots down through that water, a bit of cooling for his tires there. That's good.
And that's after he already went up into the grass at Les Combes. You're back to the action now. Less than a car length separates Nigel Mansell from Alain Prost. Talk about a battle of wits. Boy, this team chemistry could go right out the window right now if these guys don't play this one right.
It's quite obvious that Nigel's car is handling better than Prost's one way or another. The Ferrari certainly seems to be handling extremely well this year. The McLarens are certainly not invincible on the handling side. It's just they have better power, but they can't use all the power under these extremely treacherous conditions which are prevailing right now.
Nigel Mansell says Alain Prost is perhaps the one man in the Formula One pit lane that he would welcome onto the Ferrari team because he can learn from him, because he is a gentleman.
Now then, is he going to be able to get him at La Source this time? This is the critical corner here, the bus stop chicane. If Nigel could come off there quicker than Prost, he'll probably be able to get him up at La Source.
You know that there is a huge element of Ferrari fans. The Tifosi have come from Italy to be in Belgium. He's going to go wide again.
He's going to be careful doing that.
I think he thinks that's part of the racetrack.
Well,
it's part of his racetrack.
Well, he can't turn the car into La Source. The front end just won't quite grip. Look how dry it is there. That must be playing havoc with these tires. Luckily, it's wet at the top there, so it gives him a good chance to cool off.
Here comes Nigel Mansell. Will he feint right or left? He gets into the dirty air, the turbulence behind the McLaren, and that can throw him off as well. There is a brief rooster tail as he gets a little bit of the water on his tires that he needs.
Well, Prost went to the right, partly to stop Nigel coming past, partly to get his tires wet. And, of course, it may be that Prost put more wing on his car. Look at the rooster tail. Well, not the rooster tails, but the vortex off his wing. He's got a lot of air going through there. It may be that Prost put a bit more wing on just before the start of the race for the rain, and now it's stopped raining. That extra wing is hurting him on these long uphill climbs.
The designers tell us that as you increase the car's speed, the downforce and the drag created on the car do not go up arithmetically or linearly. They go up exponentially. The simplest example is if you double a car's speed, the drag, the aerodynamic drag on the car goes up 4 times as much, and the horsepower needed to overcome that drag goes up 8 times the amount. You can run through 600 or 700 horses in a hurry just going from 100 miles an hour to 200.
I think Prost has got more rear wing than Mansell because, A, Mansell's car looks much more twitchy at the rear end, even though he's going off with the front end giving up at La Source. But he's also quite obviously just as quick or quicker up these long straights, and the Ferrari does not have the same horsepower that the Honda's got. So I think that Prost has put a little bit too much wing in his car for the conditions as they are now, but of course it was great before when it was raining.
After an awful lot of early attrition, we lost 9 cars very quickly in this race, but now, after 37 laps, the 17 cars that were here about 20 laps or so ago are still here. Nigel Mansell quickly looking to the inside as they approach the chicane, but Prost is there. The McLaren against the Ferrari. Mansell still getting a little bit of twitch there. And now on to the pit straightaway. Fists in the air. Ferrari fans. Will he try inside or outside here in La Source? And will he go wide across the curbing? Yes, he will.
Yeah, well, he's got to be careful doing that. He'll clip that guardrail on the exit if he's not careful.
You think he's unable to do it?
Well, I think he's just trying to go around the corner. It doesn't seem to lose him much time. It's obviously hard to tell here. He's further behind here than he is at La Source, but that's just a function of speed and time.
Coming up now on Martini, that's the Minardi. And the contrails streaming behind them. Not the camera we wanted to be watching this battle from. Here comes Prost, still very wet out there, as you can see.
Now we saw
into Lecombe
last week, of course, Ayrton Senna, Alan Prost's teammate, got boxed in a situation like that, and Nigel gripped the opportunity with both hands, flung himself past both cars in a death-defying move, and of course, when they come up on lap traffic now, he and Alan Prost have both got to be thinking, is he going to try the same trick again?
That was all anybody could talk about, was Mansell's pass in Hungary, seeking the water for his tires and still stalking Alain Prost. We're going to go away for a commercial briefly. We'll be right back. You won't miss a thing. Back at Belgium with 17 cars remaining. Fast lap has now been reset by Pierluigi Martini in his Minardi at 2:12.826. But the battle is right here for second place. Alain Prost against Nigel Mansell.
As they come up through Blanchimont, which is now quite dry on line, which must be playing havoc with these tires. And they come up to this little right-hand sweep before they come to the bus stop chicane. There's Gugelmin going through the chicane, and Nigel follows him right through. As they come off the chicane, there's no doubt about it that Prost just seems to get a bit of an advantage through this left-hand sweep, which he's got to thank his lucky stars for, because as they come into the hairpin, ooh, just what he doesn't want.
Let's see if Nigel goes wide again over the curbing, and he does.
He seems to go very wide there. He obviously can't get the car in. Now we got to think, now we got a point here. We've got Gugelmin as they come down to Eau Rouge, fastest part of the track.
And they climb the sheer face of Eau Rouge. You must stand at the bottom of that hill and look up to realize just how steep it is, and yet they fly up at better than 150 miles an hour. As the battle continues, John has a comment from pit road about why Nigel Mansell is so wide. John?
We ran down to that part of the section. We ran down there to have a look, and we could see that Nigel Mansell was actually steering off the road onto the new pavement. David, as you said, that's very dangerous. First of all, it's new pavement, which means it's twice as slippery as the cured pavement that he's going from. So the new pavement is like going onto ice, and I can't see him doing it lap after lap, but it is a definite intentional movement on the far outside part of that turn.
Well, perhaps I think the only thing that can be construed into that is his car just won't take the tight line, and he feels if he gives it too much acceleration on a tight radius, he's probably going to destroy his rear tires quicker than on that wider radius. But everywhere he goes, he's using more road than Alan Prost, and he's the only guy that's going through that water there. I just don't understand why Alan Prost is not cooling his tires more. Obviously, he daren't go offline anywhere now to cool his tires in case Nigel slips alongside him. He's kind of shot his bolt there, but I would have thought that before Nigel caught right up to him, he should have been looking after his tires just a bit better.
Nigel looks to the outside quickly. It was always said that Nigel Mansell was a brutal driver, that he was a guy who would overcome the deficiency of a car and just go fast out of sheer desire to do so. Not the greatest technician, not a delicate touch behind the wheel. But after last week, 2 weeks ago in Hungary, and now if he can pull this off, I think people will have to start looking at Nigel Mansell as, in fact, a technically more than competent Formula One driver.
Absolutely, and this rapid race of theirs for this second spot has pulled them rapidly away from Thierry Boutsen, who's now languishing nearly 35 seconds behind. That's the closest he's been coming out of there. Is he going to be able to get him on braking for the hairpin?
Down they come. 4 laps remaining. What a time to look at a pit board. Let's see if he takes the wide line. He does once again. Nigel Mansell continues to wrestle with his Ferrari. Notice that he hasn't got a guiding light, as John called it earlier. The brake light, the fog light, the mist light, the rain light is gone on the back of the Ferrari.
Now, if he switched it off prematurely, of course, that's the sort of thing that could get himself black flag for, of course. Coming up the straight here. Up the main straight, about 190 miles an hour. Prost running offline there to cool his tires down. I'm sure he's got it in his mind too. He doesn't want Nigel getting alongside him as they come into Lake Holm. This is where Nigel took his excursion a few laps back. No excursions this time, and still both of them holding remarkably tight lines and looking very untwitchy, considering that these tires of theirs must be getting pretty near the end of their useful life, and the track is probably at about its most slippery now, with just that greasy remnant of water and some dry line. It always makes it very, very tricky. Nigel giving a bit of a twitch there as he comes down the hill to the second part of Rivage, using all the curb, the back end twitching out there as he gives it some throttle going down the hill. Is that
one of the arrows, I think? One of the arrows crawling down in the downhill section towards Pouhon. Tough break there.
Very
Either
dry
Warwick or Cheever is out there limping around the racetrack.
Looking for that water going through that one puddle that's left on this track.
Water was his greatest enemy at the start. Now it's his closest friend for Nigel Mansell. He desperately needs to keep the tires cool. And Prost now goes over to the puddles as well. You can see the beginnings of shadows. It is not anything like a day at the beach here at Belgium, but the sun is beginning to break through at several patches of this 4-mile racetrack. Back onto the public road they go once again. The dry line. Prost leads. Mansell follows. Ayrton Senna remains the leader, followed by Prost, Mansell, Boutsen, Nannini, Warwick, Gugelmin, Stefan Johansson, Emmanuel Pirot, and Andrea de Cesaris filling out the top 10. Mansell looks to the inside, but no. He is right on Prost's gearbox now. Last time he had Prost up on the curbs in his desperation to keep the Ferrari behind him. And there's Alio off at La Source. The other Lola Lamborghini is now out. Alboreto crashed earlier with the Williams of Riccardo Patrese. So if Alio does not get back in...
Did not go wide that time. Now, it did not go wide. He also was not quite as close to Prost on his approach and did not take that wide line. Maybe he's decided to drop back a few hundred yards, give himself and his tires a bit of a breather, and maybe give Alan Prost a bit of a sense of false security, and then have another go at him.
The laps are running down. The Ferrari fans are cheering for all they're worth for their man, Nigel Mansell, to take Alain Prost. We'll be back to Belgium. For second place in the Belgian Grand Prix. Mansell now up on the gearbox of the McLaren all the way around the racetrack.
Coming down to Pouhon, this is the place where Nigel's been using much more of the road than Alain Prost. Again, up on the curb there, the car twitching as he puts the weight, cross-jacks the weight badly across that car, hitting the outside curb with the outside tires. But boy, he is all over Alain Prost like a cheap suit now. They got about 3.5 laps to go. At this rate, can Alain Prost hold him off?
This Belgian Grand Prix, sponsored by a name familiar. Oh, Nigel looks at the outside this time. I'm beginning to think that that might be where he needs to try to make the pass. Go around the outside where the water remains.
He's gonna have a go anywhere, I tell you, on the last lap. Watch out, AP. Up to Blanchimont. This left-hand, double left-hander, which goes to more than 90 degrees. They're doing about 190 miles an hour up there in this damp condition. You can see the incredibly humid air, those contrails off the back wings of both these cars.
Mansell up through the bus stop one more time. We believe they'll have 3 laps remaining. We'll look for the pit boards when they go by this time. You see that large Champion spark plug sign overhead. Champion is the sponsor of this race with 2 laps remaining. Mansell and Prost. Will he try this time? Once again, he does not go far outside. He stays right in the wheel marks of Alain Prost.
Very much so.
In case you're wondering why an American company like Champion would sponsor a Formula One race in Belgium, it's because their European headquarters are here. A great number of their employees are out here today watching the race.
Up the hill through Kemmel. Meanwhile, of course, this battle is for second spot. Of course, Ayrton Senna is enjoying about a 10-second lead over this frantically battling duo for second spot. Obviously, Alain Prost determined to hang on to that because it will affect his World Championship point situation quite severely if Mansell should pass him now, because that will help Mansell a lot and will hinder Alain Prost a lot in his quest for another World Championship. Down to Rivage. Nigel going very wide there. Is he going wide on purpose to get the wet?
I don't think that time. That looked like wider than advisable, even to keep the water on your
and
tires.
He's going wide there too. You could see him taking a snatch at the wheel there. He got a lot of understeer as he went into that downhill left-hander. Maybe his front tires are starting to give up just a little bit.
I think he is really struggling with that car as well as with Alain Prost. What a drive from Nigel Mansell.
Of course, you've got to remember that Nigel Mansell consistently turned in all those very, very fast laps while he was catching Prost up. So it's not... Everybody could say, well, they're both driving the same sort of speed here. Why would Nigel's tires give up more than Prost? Well, the fact remains he had to pick up about 18 seconds before he could get to this situation.
Nigel closes up one more time.
Trying around the outside again at Stavelot. He's got a lap and a half, or about a lap and a third to get by Alain Prost, who's not the easiest man in the world to overtake.
Our friends from Belgian TV, of course, have not shown us your leader, Ayrton Senna. You should know that there's the man. As I speak, Ayrton Senna, you'll see the gap back to the battle for second place. 15 times in 35 races, the winner of the Belgian Grand Prix has gone on to be world champion. But interestingly enough, Ayrton Senna is the only man who has done it in this decade.
Nigel getting a good old slide on as he comes through the bus stop chicane. This is pretty well where he's got to get Nigel Alain Prost at this chicane.
One to go. Will he try it? He cannot. He goes wide once again. Nigel Mansell doing everything in his considerable powers to try to overtake Alain Prost. And up front, you know Ayrton Senna is hoping that his teammate can keep Mansell behind him.
Now, Mansell definitely closer as they come out of Radion this time than he was last lap. Maybe that very wide line, he's discovered that wide line coming off the La Source hairpin does in fact help him. Is he going to make a desperate move here on the inside at Lacombe? Just too far back.
Recall that this is where he straightened out this corner. Oh, he tried to the inside. And now to the outside.
Prost making sure that all the road is comfortably full of Honda McLaren. Down to Rivage for the last time. Track really drying out. Is Nigel going to go wide here like he did last time? Yes, he is. He goes very wide, picks up a bit of cool for his tires, but loses a bit of ground there.
Will it be in the cards for Nigel Mansell today, who is struggling to try to get the 2 extra points that go with second as opposed to third place? 9 points for the victory, 6 for second, 4 for third, 3, 2, and 1 for the remaining 3 points-paying positions in Formula One racing.
It seems hard to believe that with these two guys battling like this for this second spot, that the fastest lap of the race still belongs to Martini, Pierluigi Martini in the Minardi at a 2:12.1. Just
and he has reset it. 3 times Martini has gone faster. Lap 40, 5 laps ago. Well, now 4 laps ago until we complete this one.
Is Nigel going to make a last despairing effort when they come to the bus stop chicane? Look how close.
Much closer to Senna.
They are to Senna now. They've wound him right in.
I wonder if Senna has a problem. There is your race leader, Senna, and these guys are less than 2 seconds behind him. This is first, second, and third. The 3 previous winners of the Belgian Grand Prix are now in your picture. Senna, who won it a couple of years ago. Mansell won it 3 years ago. Prost won it last year. Senna won it. Let me correct myself. Prost won it 2 years ago. Senna last year. Ayrton Senna will win it once again as the checkered flag flies and the Honda engine ears cheer their man home one more time. Victory number 5.
1 and 2. Here we see Terry Boutsen, who now languishes 40 seconds behind that tremendous race for second spot.
Congratulations in the pit. Probably a future president of the Honda Motor Company there. This is where they send their young engineers, the best and the brightest of Honda, come to their Formula One engine program. And there are rumors that more than one Formula One team next year will have Honda engines, as many as 3 perhaps, as Terry Boutsen makes his way around the final time. Senna, your leader. Alain Prost in second. Nigel Mansell third after a terrific battle. Terry Boutsen will finish 4th. Sandro Nannini 5th unofficially. And Derek Warwick with arrows will finish 6th. There is the checkered flag for the local favorite. Not a victory, but certainly a fine race today for Terry Boutsen of the Williams team. And we'll be back to sum up the official results of the Grand Prix of Belgium in just a moment.